فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى في القرآن الكريم والفرقان الحميد بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد صدق الله العظيم. وقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى أحب إليه من والده وولده والناس أجمعين أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. My dear respected brothers, elders and members of the congregation, I would like to begin by depicting a situation before you. The place is Hudaybiyah. The characters are the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his companions. Now the issue is there is an individual whose name was Urwa bin Mas'ud. He eventually went on to become a Sahaba. So Urwa bin Mas'ud radiyallahu an. Urwa had been sent by his tribe to go to Hudaybiyah where the Muslims, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahaba were. And his main job was to assess how the Sahaba's character or how their respect was for the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right? So the Sahaba, the Prophet and the companions on the way to go Umrah, they were stopped at Hudaybiyah. And Urwa was sent by his people, by his tribe that go there, go to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, spend some time with him, come back and tell us how the Sahaba's character or how their respect was for the Prophet, for their leader. And my dear respected brothers, this is what I want to direct your attention towards. Urwa went, he spent a few days with the Prophet, he learned how the Sahaba's character was with the Prophet, and then he returned back to his people. And the statement he mentions, I'll mention in Arabic and then I'll translate it into English. My brothers, it is truly thought-provoking. So Urwa mentions to his people, Ay qawm, O my people, Wallahi laqad wafattu ala al-muluki, wa wafattu ala Qaysara wa Kisra wa Najashi. That, O my people, verily I have spent time with some very influential people. I have been in the company of major kings of their times. And he gives examples like the Qaysar, the Kisra, Najashis, etc. He had been in the company of all these rulers. And then he mentions, Wallahi in ra'aytu malikan qattu yu'azzimuhu ashabuh kama yu'azzimu ashabu Muhammadin Muhammada. That I have never seen in the company of all of these rulers ever a group of companions who respect their leader like the companions of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam respect Muhammad. And then he went to give examples. What does he mean by this? What did he see that the Sahabas were doing to our beloved Prophet that the companions of other rulers weren't doing? He goes to give examples. He mentions that Wallahi in tanakhama nukhamatan illa waqa'at fi kaffi rajulin minhum fadalaka biha wajha wa jilda. That verily not even a drop of saliva from the beloved mouth of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam could drop onto the floor except it is gathered by one of the Sahaba, who then does what with it? He rubs it on his face or he rubs it on his skin. This was the respect, this was the love they had for the Prophet. He goes on to mention وَإِذَا أَمَرَهُمْ إِبْتَدَرُوا أَمْرًا. That whenever he'd give them a command, whenever he'd give them an order, they'd spend, as soon as they heard the order, they'd be onto it, they'd be fulfilling the order. They would waste no time, no delay. He goes on to say, وَإِذَا تَوَضَّأَ كَادُوا يَقْتَتِلُونَ عَلَى وَضُوعِهِ. That when the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was doing wudu, when he was doing ablution, then his wudu, the leftover water, the companions would fight for it. They'd compete for the leftover water of the Prophet. Which king or which ruler can boast this sort of situation, this sort of love from his companions in today's generation? And he goes on to say the final few statements, وَإِذَا تَكَلَّمَ خَفَضُوا أَصْوَاتَهُمْ عِنْدَ. That when the Prophet ﷺ would speak to them, or when he would speak, they would lower their voices near him. وَمَا يُحِدُّونَ إِلَيْهِ النَّظَرُ تَعْظِيمًا لَهُ. And they would never look at him directly at eye level. They would always be looking down out of respect for the Prophet. My dear respectors, this was the respect, and this was the assessment which Urwa bin Mas'ud radiallahu anhu made of the Sahaba's treatment of our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, you could be asking that why did I pick this particular statement or this particular topic to talk before you today? The hadith I mentioned in my khutbah, our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions, لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى أحب إليه من والده وولده والناس أجمعين. He mentions that none of you truly believe. Our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, none of you truly believe until you love me more than walidihi wa waladihi wa nasi ajma'een, than your father, your children, and entire humanity. Now, before we go further into this hadith, just back onto the topic of love that the Sahaba had for the Prophet and how much they were willing to sacrifice for the Prophet. I just wanted to take the Battle of Uhud as an example and give you a few examples from the Battle of Uhud. It's often known that this particular battle is a testament to just how much the Sahabas used to love the Prophet. There are numerous examples from within this battle where sacrifice like the likes of which had never been seen before. Let me give you one example. Abu Dujana radiyallahu an, companion of the beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's mentioned that in the Battle of Uhud, he made himself as a human shield for the Prophet. Wherever the Prophet was, he would cover himself on top of the Prophet. Every arrow, every spear that was directed towards the Prophet, he would take the hit. Why was this? This was because of the love and the sacrifice he was making for the Prophet ﷺ. And if we were to adapt this into our own lives, we would see similar results. And it mentions regarding another Sahabi, Talha ibn Ubaidullah, and his bravery in the Battle of Uhud is unparalleled. It is said that scholars write that he purchased Jannah in this battle. And even our beloved Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned, Awjaba Talha, that Talha has made it compulsory. Meaning Talha had made Jannah compulsory upon himself because of this battle. So let me just explain about Talha bin Ubaidullah. It's mentioned, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu mentions that during the Battle of Uhud, أتينا طلحة يعني يوم أحد وجدنا به بضع وسبعين جراحة. That during the Battle of Uhud, we walked towards Talha radiallahu anhu. We could see Talha, so we walked towards him. And he mentions that on his body we saw no less than 70 and a bit more wounds. In that one individual in the Battle of Uhud, on his body, this one Sahaba, for the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he had endured 70 plus wounds. And it's mentioned during the Battle of Uhud, all the spears, arrows and swords that were coming towards him, his fingers were severed from his fingers were severed from the remaining from his hand, and his hand had become paralyzed due to the arrows that were going through it. And who did he do this for? He did this for none other than the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And it's mentioned the particular time when the Prophet said, Awjaba Talha, the scholars narrate that on the Battle of Uhud, our beloved Prophet's armor, it was 2 pieces and it was very heavy. Now, as the battle goes on, as time goes on, as tiredness increases, it became difficult for the Prophet to start climbing certain rocks. Now in battle, obviously, if you climb certain rocks, you get a better view and it's just tactically advantageous to go to a higher position. So when the Prophet would try to get onto a higher rock, it became difficult due to how heavy the armor was, how hot the day was, etc. So it's mentioned that the Prophet, whilst injured, he tried to climb a rock. However, he was finding it difficult. And Talha, the companion of the Prophet ﷺ, he saw this. So what did he do? He went to that rock and he lied down, or sort of just kneeling down. He was essentially making himself a step that the Prophet ﷺ could step on and then reach the top of the rock. And the scholars mention when the Prophet ﷺ saw this, when he ascended using his back, that's when he mentioned, Awjaba Talha, Talha has made Jannah compulsory upon him. Another story, and just another example of another Sahabi, my dear friend, whose bravery is well known during the Battle of Uhud. And it's none other than Abu Ubaidah radiallahu anhu. And the main hadith regarding the battle of, the main athar regarding battle of Uhud, it comes from Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. So he mentions regarding the battle of Uhud that I could see someone running towards the Prophet, towards our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So I was here, the Prophet was there somewhere, and I could see someone from quite far running towards the Prophet. Now Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu mentions, I was closer to the Prophet than that person was, but due to the fact that he was running and I was walking quite quickly, that individual reached the Prophet before I did. He goes, so he reached the Prophet and I reached just like a few seconds later, for example. And then he mentions, when I saw who that individual was, it was Abu Ubaidah radiallahu anhu. And when we got closer to the Prophet, we had seen that two of the links from his helmet had pierced the beloved cheek of the Prophet, right? So two of the links from the helmet had gone into the cheek of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So now, Abu Bakr, this was a cause of, it was causing great pain to the Prophet, that there's a piece of metal inside his cheek. So Abu Bakr, he goes close to the cheek and he's about to pull out the link to obviously ease the suffering of the Prophet. However, just as he's about to do this, Abu Ubaidah radiallahu anhu mentions a statement which makes Abu Bakr pull away from doing it. What does he mention? Abu Ubaidah radiallahu anhu mentions to Abu Bakr that, listen, I take an oath on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that it is my right and you have to honor my right and allow me to take that out. Now the scholars write, why was it Abu Ubaidah radiallahu anhu's right over Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu? And they say it's because he got to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam first, that made it his right to take out the link from the cheek. So what does he do? Abu Bakr says, you've used the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you've given your reasoning, it's all yours, you can have the respect, you can have the honor of taking it out. So just listen to this now. Abu Ubaidah, he's about to take it out with his hand, and he thinks, do you know what? If I take it out with my hand, it's going to cause too much taklif, too much pain to our beloved Prophet. So what does he do? He thinks that it'll lighten the burden if he takes it out with his tooth. So what does he do? He puts his front tooth and he takes the link out with that just to lighten the burden upon Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and to ease his suffering. And he lost his tooth during the first link. Now, there's still one more link left, right? There was two. So one's taken out, he took it out with his tooth and his front tooth came out with it as well. Now the second link, the same situation happened. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu was about to remove it. Abu Ubaidah radiallahu anhu, he said, it's my right, I got here before you, etc. And he used the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Abu Bakr put his hands up and said, your fair point, go on, you take it out. He's just about to take out with his hand. Again, what does he do? He uses his teeth and he takes this link out, using his teeth out of the Prophet's cheek just to lighten the burden. And Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu mentions regarding this, he mentions a statement that there was no one more handsome or beautiful on the face of this earth with two teeth than Abu Ubaidah radiallahu anhu. The actual Arabic statement he mentioned, I'll find it for you later inshallah, but he mentioned there was no one more beautiful. I found here. فَكَانَ أَبُو عُبَيْدَةَ مِنْ أَحْسَنِ النَّاسِ هَتْمًا. Hatma means anyone who doesn't have the front two teeth. He mentions there was no one more beautiful, no one more handsome on the face of this earth without their two teeth than Abu Ubaidah. And so my dear respected brothers, the point being made here is that our beloved Prophet mentioned, like I mentioned earlier, لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى أحب إليه من والده وولده والناس أجمعين. No one can truly believe until I am more beloved to you, as in Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is more beloved to us than our parents, our children, and humanity in general. So I remember when I was studying in Alim class in Bukhari, when Mufti Inatullah Sahib, he taught us this hadith. Someone asked him that regarding this hadith, how can one check or how can one test if the Prophet is more beloved to them or their family is more beloved to them or just general people are more beloved to them? How do you test that? We all know and we all accept that we have to love the Prophet more, but how do we test that or how do we check that? And he gave a very nice answer which I'd like to share with you. He mentioned that you find a situation where there are competing interests. So where there are two different interests. So for example, there's visiting the sick. So there's a relative, you have a relative who's sick. And it is a well-known sunnah of the beloved Prophet Muhammad that whenever he sees someone that was sick, he'd go visit them, right? This was a sunnah of our beloved Prophet. Now let's say on the other hand, a family member says, let's go for a barbecue on such and such a day. So on Saturday, a family member texts you, let's go for a barbecue on such and such a day. On that same day, you see a message, so and so individual is sick. So Mufti Azhar Sahibi gave this example and he mentioned, whichever one you give priority to in such a situation, that is who you prefer and that is who is most beloved to you. Now, that doesn't mean you can't make time for such a situation, going out with family, etc., as long as all the Shari'i guidelines are followed. But whatever you give priority to, that is what is more beloved to an individual. So if you want to know if you prioritize our beloved Prophet or if you prioritize family members, etc., then you look for a situation with competing interests such as this. And another situation that's just coming to my head right now, I remember approximately 7 to 8 years ago, it was Champions League final at the same time as Maghrib Salah. So I was watching it with my dad at home, and Adhan went off for Maghrib. So we've gone to Masjid, local Masjid Shuhada. So we've gone to Masjid Shuhada, we've prayed Fard Salah, and as soon as Fard Salah was over, I legged it home to carry on watching the football, whereas my dad obviously stayed in the Masjid and prayed Sunnats. And I hadn't prayed my Sunnats. This would be when I was 13 or 14. So when he'd come back home, he mentioned to me, did you pray your Sunnats? I mentioned no. So the situation that comes, I was just thinking about how prioritizing Sunnah over thing. But in that particular situation, when I was watching the final, when he come back home, let's just say he taught me that lesson that day, without incriminating anyone. We'll just keep it at that. But so that was another situation. So when there's football or when there's sunnah of our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whatever you prioritize in such a situation, that will show whether you're a true believer, right? And moving on, my dear brothers, Imam Malik radiallahu anhu, he mentions that as-sunnatu safinatu nuhin man rakibaha naja wa man takhallafa anha gharaq. That the sunan, the lifestyle of the Prophet, everything regarding the Prophet, his full life, his actions, his sayings, his narrations, everything is like the Ark of Nuh alayhi salam. Now the Ark of Nuh alayhi salam, even in English literature, they use the Ark of Noah as like in a situation where there is no refuge besides one particular place, they'll refer to it as the Ark of Noah. So he mentions that Sunnah is like as-Safina to Nuh, is like the ship or the Ark of Nuh alayhi salam. Man rakibaha, whoever climbs onto it, whoever holds firm to it, naja, you will be successful. However, man takhallafa anha, whoever diverts away from it, whoever deviates from it, gharaq, you will drown. And just regarding this bayan, I had two main topics. This first one was regarding sunan and love for the Prophet Muhammad. Then I wanted to go on to a different topic. So I'll finish this particular topic regarding love of the Prophet with 3 sunan which me firstly I need to improve on in my life, and inshallah if someone doesn't abide by these sunnahs, and hopefully they can learn. But wherever I'm addressing someone, I'm addressing myself mainly. So I wanted to talk about 3 sunan which we need to make more of an effort on as a community. The first one, it comes in a hadith our beloved Prophet mentioned, Man kana yu'minu billahi wal yawmil akhir falyaqul khayran aw liyasmut. That whoever believes in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the last day, either speak good or stay silent. Now someone can question, and it'd be a valid question, that why is silence all of a sudden seen as good? It's just a very logical, simple answer. If a person speaks, he carries on speaking, then there's a few risks that he opens himself up to. He could either speak too much, he could either speak false, he could either lie, he could either backbite. Whereas when one is silent, all these potential avenues for saying something wrong or attracting sin, all of them are closed just by staying silent. That's why there's an English statement as well. If speech is silver, silence is golden. Yeah, just an English statement. If speech is silver, silence is golden. So it kind of corroborates with the point that when one is silent, all them harms which you could potentially attract towards yourself, you're just keeping yourself away from all of them. So that was the first kind of sunnah or teaching of the Prophet which I wanted to emphasize. And imagine how many problems in the local community could just be averted just by this very simple statement. Either speak good or just stay silent. The second one I wanted to mention was regarding salam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Right? Now, it comes in a very famous hadith. So now someone could say to me regarding salam, we say salam to our brothers, we say salam to things. So I'll mention the hadith of the Prophet regarding salam, then I'll mention what I believe the problem to be with myself firstly. So our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he mentions, إِذَا لَقِيَ أَحَدُكُمْ أَخَاهُ فَلْيُسَلِّمْ عَلَيْهِ. When any of you meet your brother, whenever you meet a fellow Muslim, send salam upon him. فَإِنْ حَالَتْ بَيْنَهُمَا شَجَرَ أَوْ جِدَارَ أَوْ حَجَرَ ثُمَّ لَقِيَهُ فَلْيُسَلِّمْ عَلَيْهِ. That if you're walking and a tree comes in between you, or a wall comes in between you, lamppost, anything comes in between you, like a big rock, a huge rock comes in between you, then when you meet on the other side, say salam to him again. Now one could argue that we say salam generally. So the problem which I find with myself is, we do salam, or a person generally does salam when he believes the other person to be of his level, like whether that be financially, socially, any of these factors. So people generally tend to do salam to someone who's on their level or above them. Whereas when someone sees someone that maybe they think is inferior to them, whether that be socially, financially, or in terms of age, then you'd automatically be deterred from doing salam to him. Everyone thinks he should do salam to me, why should I do salam to him? However, this is a very wrong mindset, and this full logic, this defective logic, you can just listen to one hadith regarding this. عن أنس رضي الله عنه أنه مر على صبيان فسلم عليهم وقال كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يفعله. What does he mention? Anas radiallahu anhu, he's walking past children and he does salam upon them. So wait a second, think about this. This is a Sahaba, a companion of the Prophet Muhammad, yet he's doing salam upon the children, not the other way around. He's doing salam upon the children. Who would you say is of higher status? Yeah, the Sahaba is doing salam upon the child, and then to make it one even better, he mentions كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يفعله, that even the Prophet Muhammad used to do salam to children. Even our beloved Prophet used to do salam to children. So then who are we to think this person is inferior to me socially, financially, in terms of age or anything like that, and not do salam to them? It doesn't make sense. And I need to work on this firstly more than everyone. So that was the second one. The first one we mentioned was regarding either speak good or stay silent. The second one is regarding doing salam to people and not looking at their level. Whoever you see, do salam to everyone. And now the third one is regarding drinking. And the reason I'm mentioning this, a few days ago at iftar, I remember I just noticed whilst I was in the action that I just completely forgot to take 3 sips as soon as iftar happened whilst I was drinking water. So I thought just regarding that, it's just good to remind people of that hadith. Our beloved Prophet mentions, لا تشربوا واحدا كشرب البعير, that when any of you are drinking, don't drink all in one sip, like one long sip or one long gulp, like the drinking of a camel. This is how a camel drinks, right? So don't drink all in one sip. وَلَكِنِ اشْرَبُوا مَثْنَى وَثُلَاث, rather than drink in 3 sips, drink in 2 sips, yeah? وَسَمُّوا إِذَا أَنْتُمْ شَرِبْتُمْ, and remember Allah, say Bismillah whilst you are drinking. وَاحْمَدُوا إِذَا أَنْتُمْ رَفَعْتُمْ, and whenever you put the glass away, whenever you are done drinking, ihmadu, so remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the reason for this, even science proved this now. I was reading somewhere the other day, if you have one long sip, you're going to increase your chances of breathing into the cup. And breathing into the cup, they was mentioning something about the pH of the blood, which would get decreased, which eventually has adverse consequences on a human individual. So even science supports it. Not that we needed science to support it. The hadith of our beloved Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was enough for us, but even science does support this. And just regarding breathing in a cup, our Prophet Muhammad ﷺ mentioned, إِذَا شَرِبَ أَحَدُكُمْ فَلَا يَتَنَفَّسْ فِي الْإِنَاءِ, when any of you are drinking, do not breathe into the cup, right? So this was the 3 sunnahs, and this was the first topic which I wanted to cover regarding first one, either speak good or stay silent, right? Second one, regarding salam, and doing salam to everyone, no matter what the status is, because we are not anyone to judge. And the third one, drinking in 3 sips and not breathing into the actual utensil which you're using to drink, or the cup or the glass. So inshallah, that's the end of the first one. Now the second topic which I wanted to talk about, and this was a last minute change, because what happened was approximately 2 weeks ago, I was talking to someone and he mentioned, Mulsab, listen, tell me a little bit about Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah. Yeah, so he mentioned, tell me a little bit about Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah. So I mentioned, okay, what masla do you want to know of his? And inshallah, I'll go home, I'll research it. Or with my limited knowledge, I know what it is, I'll let you know. So what do you want to know? Which masla do you want to know regarding? He goes, no. I don't want to know any masla. I don't want to know any specific example. I want to know about him. So give me an example of his intellect. Give me an example of his life. Give me an example of how he used to think. Because think about the millions upon millions, hundreds of millions of Muslims who are following his madhab. I want to know a little about him. I know about the Prophet ﷺ, not as much as I should know, but I do know a little about the Prophet, etc. I know a little bit about the Sahaba, but I don't know enough about Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah. So tell me a little bit about him. And I'll be honest, when I heard this question, I was left dumbstruck, because I was just in the same position as a questioner. I didn't know much about Imam Abu Hanifa's actual history as well. So what I did was, I bought this book. The book is on Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah. If anyone wants to read it, it's an amazing book in English. Very simple English, and he just mentions stories of his history, and then there's a very good chapter about, I think, 50 pages just on incidents of Imam Abu Hanifa's intellect and how his brain used to work. And for anyone who likes that intellectual using logic to kind of defeat arguments, it's an unreal book. I'll send the picture to Mulsab inshallah, and then he can pass it around if anyone wants to read it. But from that book, I read that book, and then I gave that person a few answers, and I also referred the book onto him. But a few incidents from Imam Abu Hanifa's life which I found out, I'd like to share with you. And if you concentrate on them, the way his intellect was, the way his brain used to work was absolutely unreal. So the first one, and it's a very famous story, many of you might have heard of it, and all the youngsters as well, if you concentrate on this story. So I'll make it simple. So one of the stories from the life of Imam Abu Hanifa, they say in the kitab, it says this story happened when he was a young boy. So any of your ages, for example, let's think of about 9 to 10 years old. He doesn't mention the actual age, but very young child. He mentions Imam Abu Hanifa was a young child walking with his father, and they heard an announcement. They heard an announcement where someone was calling out, I am a representative, or I have been sent by the Emperor of Rome. Yeah? Someone in Abu Hanifa's village in Kufa was saying to everyone, I have been sent by the Emperor of Rome, and I have a lot of wealth with me, which I have been ordered to give to the Muslims. But the Emperor has told me, only give it to the Muslims if they answer 3 questions, or if someone can answer 3 questions to you in a manner where you're satisfied, only then give them this wealth. Yeah? So he was making this king's representative, or this emperor's representative in Rome. He came to Kufa, where Imam Abu Hanifa was from, and he made this announcement. Whoever can answer 3 questions, I'll give them all this wealth which I've been given. But I can only give it if you answer them to a satisfactory manner, to a level where I'm happy with the answer. So Imam Abu Hanifa was walking with his father. Imam Abu Hanifa said to his father, oh, please, let me go and try and answer his questions. So Imam Hanifa goes, listen, chill out, you're a little child. Let the ulama, let the scholars of our time try and answer him. So eventually there was a bit of a majlis, or a bit of a gathering formed in the town hall, where there was a chair had been placed. The representative with all the wealth was sitting on the chair, and all the people around him, the scholars have come, everyone has tried to answer his questions, but no one has managed to answer his questions to a satisfactory level. So Imam Hanifa now goes to his father again. Now listen, let me try. His father goes, ask the Khalifa. If the Khalifa lets you, I don't mind you trying to answer his questions. Imam Hanifa goes to the Khalifa and says, oh Khalifa, I know I'm a very young boy, but could I try and answer his questions? The Khalifa goes, yeah, you can have permission to. Go on, go try. So now, I just want you to picture this. Think of, in a chair like this, the Emperor of Rome was sitting. Everyone's around him. Everyone's tried to answer his questions. The representative of the Emperor of Rome, and no one's managed to answer them to a satisfactory level. Now a young child has come, and he asked the Khalifa, can I do it? The Khalifa said, yeah, go on, have a shot. Try and answer his questions. So now this young child is trying to answer the questions of the Emperor of Rome for a lot of money. So what happened? That's the situation, yeah? So now, Imam Abu Hanifa, he comes up and he goes to the representative sitting on the throne or sitting on the chair. Listen, I just want to ask you one thing. Are you asking the questions or are you answering the questions? So the representative goes, I'm asking the questions to you, you're answering. So then Imam Abu Hanifa rahimullah goes, well, if that's the case, if you're asking and I'm answering, I deserve to be on the chair and you deserve to be standing. And the emperor's representative thought about it and he goes, that does make sense, it's logical. So now imagine this, a young boy has gone up and he's sat on the chair whilst the representative of the Emperor of Rome with a whole load of wealth, he's come and now he's standing asking the little boy who was to become Imam Abu Hanifa questions. Yeah? And he starts on his questions and the unreal questions. So the first question he mentioned to Imam Abu Hanifa was, listen, the first question was, I don't want to get them mixed up, so I'll just check. The first question was, what came before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Yeah, so he asked Imam Abu Hanifa, what was in existence before Allah? Before God, what was there? So Imam Abu Hanifa goes, listen, one method of answering questions is asking a question to the questioner, which will make him think, yeah? So Imam Abu Hanifa goes, listen, okay, that's a fair question. Let me just ask you another question. Count down from 10. Do you know mathematics? Count down from 10. So the emperor's representative goes, okay, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And he stopped at 1. Imam Abu Hanifa goes to him, carry on, what's before 1? So that individual, the king's representative goes, nothing's before 1. What do you mean? One is 1, there's nothing before 1. So Imam Hanifa goes and listen to this answer. When there can be nothing before the mathematical or the numerical one, how can there be anything before the one who created the heavens and the earth? Yeah, this was the first answer he gave. And to this answer, the king's emperor's representative goes, okay, that's a fair answer. We've got no reply to that. Then he moves on to the second question. And remember, this is a young child who's answering these questions whilst he's on the throne and the king's representative is standing. The second question, he goes, which direction is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala facing? Is he left? Is he right? Is he looking forward? Is he back? Up, down below. Where is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala facing? What direction? So Imam Hanifa goes, okay, I'll answer this for you. Bring me a little lamp. Yeah, so a little lamp was bought. Imam Hanifa, he lit the wick, the top of the candle or the lamp, and then he asked the individual, where is this flame facing? Is it facing forwards, backwards? Is it facing left? Is it facing right? Now, the king's representative goes, the flame is not facing anywhere. It's all encompassing, it's facing everywhere. Flame is 360, it's facing everywhere. So Imam Abu Hanifa then answers him, if the light of this world, which can be lit and also put out just by a person, if the light of this world is all encompassing and can face all directions, then how can not the light of the universe, the light Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the light of the heavens and the earth, how can he not be all encompassing? How can he be restricted to a direction when the light of this world can't be restricted to a direction? Which is again, the emperor's, listen to this, and the emperor's representative, he goes, you know what, that's a valid answer. And then he moves on to the last answer and the last question. He goes, what is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doing right now? Yeah? He asks Imam Abu Hanifa, what is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doing right now? And Imam Hanifa gives a beautiful answer. He goes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knew that there was someone who didn't believe in God on the throne, so he made that individual stand up, go down, and he made someone who believes in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala climb onto the throne and sit onto the throne as a position of respect. Yeah? So this is the answers which he gave to this king, and the emperor's representative, he goes, all answers have been perfect. The wealth which I had been given by my emperor is for your Khalifa and is for your people. And he gave it. So this was Imam Abu Hanifa's intellect at the time of a little child. And if I've got a bit of time, I've got 2-3 more examples. Should I carry on for a bit? Little bit. Yeah, so there was 1 or 2, 3 more examples which he mentioned. I'll just very quickly go through them. There was another example. A group of people came to Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, and they mentioned to Imam Abu Hanifa that, listen, you believe that when an imam is leading salah, like let's say Maghrib or something, and the Imam is reciting Surah Fatiha, whichever surah he decides to recite, then that qira'ah is sufficient for everyone behind the Imam. Yeah. So according to the Hanafi madhab, nobody behind the Imam has to pray. Behind the Imam has to pray Surah Fatiha. Yeah. We believe what the Imam prays is as a representation for all of us, and it's sufficient. So 8 or 9 people came to Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah and said, you believe this, we don't agree with this. How is it possible that one person's qira'ah is sufficient for everyone? It doesn't make sense to us. So Imam Abu Hanifa goes and just watch this intellect, or how he just, with hikmah, he dissolved the full situation. Yeah. So very quickly I'll recap the situation. A few people come to Imam Abu Hanifa, 8 or 9 people, and they say to him, listen, you believe that the Imam's qira'ah is sufficient for everyone behind him, but this doesn't make sense. How can it be possible that one person's qira'ah is sufficient for everyone? So Imam Abu Hanifa, he gives an answer, yeah? He says to the people, that these 8 or 9 people, now listen, I can't answer all of you at once, that doesn't make sense. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can hear multiple people. I can't answer all 9 of you at once. Pick one person, he can ask me all the questions, then I'll refute them all. So people go, no problem, such and so, he's our foreman, he will speak for us and you can argue with him. So Imam Abu Hanifa goes, we don't even need a debate. You've just picked a foreman, you've just picked someone who is representative of all of you in this debate. Similarly, the Imam, he is representative, his qira'ah is representative of all of us, and we don't need, that's it, the debate's finished. Just like that person can be representative of your views, the Imam is representative of all our qira'ah, and that's it, is sufficient. And one final example, which I'd like to give, in the life of Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, he used to have a neighbor, a very young man. And this is again and hopefully the aim is, by listening to this and by listening to just how Imam Abu Hanifa's brain used to work and his intellect, hopefully it might create the zeal within someone that, oh, maybe I want to study fiqh, etc. So another story, the last story which I want to mention regarding Abu Hanifa, he used to have a neighbor who was a very young man. He was a young man, but he was a man. He wasn't a boy anymore. Think about 17, 18, 19 years old. He was a young man. He wanted to marry someone. However, the problem was that the certain family he wanted to marry into, they were asking a dowry of him which he could not afford. Yeah, the dowry they were asking of him, it wasn't possible for him to meet that. He couldn't afford that. So he came to Imam Hanifa rahimahullah and he goes, he was his next door neighbor, and he goes, Imam Hanifa, I've got a big problem. I want to get married to so and so. My heart's restless for so and so, but my financial means, I don't have enough financial means to facilitate that. So what should I do? So Imam Hanifa goes, listen, pray istikhara and agree to whatever they say. Pray istikhara, agree to whatever they say. Later on during the marriage, once the marriage has been consummated, inshallah, just have hope that the wife will forfeit the rest of the debt. Yeah, wishful thinking. So that's what he mentioned to that person. He mentioned that just say yeah to them, say yeah, whatever you want, I'll pay it, that's fine. Do istikhara, say whatever, I'll pay it. And then hopefully the wife forgives it. Now, what happened? This individual went back to that family and said, listen, that dowry which you wanted, yeah, I can afford that, it's no problem. Let's start the marriage now. So what they done? They got married. However, remember, the wife hadn't gone to live with the husband, yeah? The wife hadn't gone to live with this next door neighbor of Imam Hanifa yet. They'd got married, the nikah was done, but she was still living there. Now, the wife's family said to Imam Hanifa, listen, if you want her to come to you now, give us the dowry, the full amount, and that's it. It's done. She's your wife. You can go live with her. Now this individual, remember, he just said yeah. He didn't have the means, but Imam Hanifa told him, just say yeah. So what does he do? He goes back to the family and says, listen, I've only got such and such amount of money. I can give you that much right now, and the remainder I can give you later. Is that good enough? That family said, absolutely not. That's not good enough for us. You have to now, if you want to get married to so-and-so, or if you want to live with so-and-so, the marriage had already been done, then you have to give us a full amount, the full dowry right now. So now, brothers, think how Imam Hanifa's brain used to work, yeah? Imam Hanifa then goes to that person, goes to his next door neighbor, listen, I'm quite wealthy, I'll give you some money, yeah? However much debt you need to pay, I'm going to give it to you right now. Go and give it to that family. Take a loan off me and give it to that family right now. And then she'll become yours, she'll move in with you. So that person goes, okay, no problem. And just stay with this story. I'm trying to make it as simple as possible. So that person goes, okay, that's fine. I'll take the money you've given me as a loan and I'll give it to that family. So what's that person done? He's took the loan of Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah. He's gone to that family and he said, here, this is all the money you wanted at once is here. Now my wife, she can officially live with me because I've given you the dowry. So the marriage was already done, but now she can live with me as well because I've given you the entire dowry which you wanted. I've paid for that. So the family goes, yeah, you're correct. You've paid us the entire dowry. You can take your wife now and she can live with you and you can consummate the marriage, etc. So now he's took the wife. Now Imam Abu Hanifa comes back to this next door neighbor and he says, listen, now do one thing. You go with your wife, hire 2 horses, put a lot of your belongings on the 2 horses and act as if you're moving for employment to Khurasan, which is a place far away from Kufa. So act as if you and your wife are now leaving this city, you're going to a completely different city to work. And obviously this would, the mother, the in-laws, so like the daughter's family or the wife's family, it'd be disturbing to them because they just got married and now they're moving to a different city to work without even informing anyone. So Imam Hanifa goes, do this, meaning don't actually go, but make it out as if you are now leaving to go to a different city. So what does Imam Hanifa do? He gets 2 horses ready, he puts his all the belongings on the horse and he acts as if him and his wife are now going to a different city for work. Now the in-laws, so the next door neighbor's wife, the next door neighbor's husband's wife, they come to Imam Hanifa, the full family, and say, he just married our daughter, he's given us dowry and now he's going to a different city. This is extremely disturbing to us. How can this happen? Imam Hanifa goes, that's his wife, he's allowed to do that. So then the family carry on pestering Imam Hanifa saying, no, that can't happen. Imam Hanifa goes, I've got a solution for you. He's probably going there because of employment, which means his shortage of money. Why don't you return him the mahar which you gave him originally, the completely extortionate mahar which you asked for originally? Why don't you return that back to him? And then maybe they won't need to go to a different city. The family agreed and they go, do you know what, that makes sense. They return the mahar and you see, with the returning of the mahar, that individual then paid Imam Hanifa his loan back and he took his original money back. Because time's running quite short, we make note of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He gives us the ability to act upon what's being said. Astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidun Majid. Allahumma barik ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad kama barakta ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidun Majid. لا إله إلا الله ولا نعبد إلا إياه له النعمة وله الفضل وله الثناء الحسن لا إله إلا الله مخلصين له الدين ولو كره الكافرون اللهم أعني على ذكرك وشكرك وحسن عبادتك اللهم إني أعوذ بك من البخل وأعوذ بك من الجبن وأعوذ بك من أن أرد إلى أرذل العمر وأعوذ بك من فتنة الدنيا وأعوذ بك من عذاب القبر. اللهم أنت السلام ومنك السلام تبارك ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار.